Okay, Mike, it's good to see you.
It's great to be with you. And I'm sitting in my house in Watford, and it's a cold, dark, rainy, horrible winter's day. But I'm sitting in front of my bookshelf so that I can give the impression that I'm an intellectual, and I'm hoping it works. And I've also got glasses that I can do this with every now and then, which also adds to the impression. But it's great to be with you.
And it's perfect because always wondered how it looks in your home. And you always tell a lot about your garden and your kitchen. And can we get a quick overview of your home, do you think?
Well, it's completely dark, so you can't see my garden.
Okay.
What, you want me to take the camera around?
Show me your bedroom. And
No, you're not seeing my bedroom, mate. Not without warning. And I'm in the middle of building works. So let me see. All right, I'll take you. This is, let me see. I hope my kitchen's all right. You've done it without warning. There's my kitchen. Here's my fridge freezer. Now, my living room is a bit of a mess because I'm in the middle of having building done. So this has just been put in. There's my clock. And what else do you want to see? My downstairs shower.
Oh.
I think we'll leave it there. I'm not going to show you anymore.
Is there a jacuzzi around?
A jacuzzi?
Yeah.
I wish. Yeah. I'm going to have a jacuzzi put in the garden, but that's part of the problem. It hasn't arrived. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Right. It's my item of luxury. But when it comes eventually. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that was nice. I always wonder how it looks at your home. So that's awesome. Well, I guess just for the guys that might be turning up this year or wasn't there last year, it's just to quickly present you. So you're the head pastor of Soul Survivor Watford, but also you've head up the Soul Survivor youth festivals every summer in England. And I guess how many years? 26 years?
It was 27 years.
27 years. And we're talking maybe 20, 30,000 teens there every year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite a trip. And you kind of stopped at the right time, didn't you?
We did. And everyone keeps coming to me and saying, you hear God, you're so prophetic. That's amazing that you stopped when you did before. And it's like, honestly, we had no idea. And sometimes I pretend, oh, yes, God told me. And then I feel guilty. So I have to say, apologize and ask for forgiveness. But what other nice things are you going to say about me? Because that's not much.
Well, I mean, if it wasn't for Mike Pilavachi, there wouldn't be an Impuls, would there?
Oh, I think there might, but that's very kind of you. What else are you going to say about me?
Well, there's a lot of great literature that you've written. And also, I guess what people didn't know is that you're the kind of the influence behind every influential worship song in England, aren't you? I mean, there's been some worship leaders that have written songs, but they're basically inspired by you, isn't that right?
Well, we had connection. Yeah. But what else are you going to say about me that's nice?
Well, I think your salary is very expensive. I think.
I wish. No, Thomas, you're not doing this very well.
I'm sorry.
I'm waiting for you to say something about my looks.
I think you
and my fashion sense and the fact that I'm a leader in fashion.
Yeah. So I see you've had a really nice haircut.
Yeah. Yes. My church voted unanimously. Yeah. Yeah. Also, I'm a renowned chef of Greek food. That was the other thing. But you weren't to know that because I haven't cooked for you.
I haven't been in your home yet. Yeah, that's
right.
No. And I guess I'm not welcome anymore, am I?
Well, not with that introduction, no. But I had to prompt you to say the important things. But there we are. You are from Norway.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Well, it's really good to see you, and we've had a relationship for years and years. It is true that Impuls kind of headed off with you visiting us for the first time. Our youth work traveled to Soul Survivor. I guess it would be over 20 plus years ago, and we got so inspired, and we kind of built up courage and asked you to come over and help us start something here. And that's basically the start of Impuls. And I guess, well, we have had a relationship since. You've been back in seasons, and it's great to have you back, and we're so thankful for the relationship we have. And also last year you were part of the leadership days, which is kind of why we're at this point. And I think one of the things that we really kind of dived into last year was the family values of church being a family. And it's been an interesting year ever since, hasn't it? We kind of dived into the church is not an organization, it's not primarily an institution, it's a family. And we kind of went home, and from there, the COVID-19 virus came, and we kind of got torn apart, didn't we? And I think a lot of us leaders have kind of struggled to find out what does that mean when we're kind of physically forced to keep apart. How does family look in a time like this? So could you tell us a little bit about your own process with that? Because I think at least we have kind of struggled to find out how that looks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think the first thing to say is all the churches have struggled in this season to do anything, really, because we realize so much of what we do is about coming together. So it's part of a bigger thing, but particularly expressing being family is number one. It's much harder when you can't meet physically. It is much harder. At the same time, we've discovered that actually, if you are family, then that stands you in very good stead for times like this. Because when you love each other, you make sure you find ways of keeping in contact. And I can only say the way it's looked for us. Our team, our leadership team I'm biased, okay, but has been absolutely fantastic in this season. We are, as leaders, if leaders aren't family, you can't expect the church to be family. So we're very close. We're communicating all the time. We're laughing and crying and arguing and all those things that families do. And so we decided from the beginning that we would do everything we could to love and support our church and our community. And that looks like many different things. And can I just tell you some of them? First of all, we asked the church to give a special offerings so that we could have a hardship fund for those that we know in our church and in our community who would be struggling because they've lost their jobs, for all sorts of other reasons, because they can't work, those things. And in total, our church has given, and I don't know how this translates to Norwegian kroner, but it has given over £50,000 to that fund. And when we hear of folk who are struggling, we help them. And so we're helping each other. And that just reminds me of, the end of Acts chapter 2. They sold their possessions and gave to anyone who had need. They shared with one another and they gave to one another. So we've tried to look after those who have been struggling. We've had some in our church just in the last few days, a family where the husband has died, leaving a wife and 3 children. And as well as in every other way, we're going to help financially, practically, because it's a terrible thing to happen and happen at this time. But then also, we've done all sorts of things. So for a while, we as leaders, we cooked meals every Thursday, takeaway meals that people in the church could order for themselves and for their neighbours if they wanted. And we capped it at 250 meals for a Thursday. And each Thursday we were full. And so we cooked, one week I cooked Greek food, and another week it was Indian food, another week it was all sorts of different, Mexican, all sorts. And we did it as well as we could. And then they came in their cars and they collected. And one lady, she collected 15 meals for her and her family, but also for people in her road, that she asked them, would you like a meal? And literally, people in our church, they, you know, who are doctors and nurses and who were exhausted, they said, I cried all the way home. I was just to have one evening where I'm loved, where a meal is cooked for me. And obviously we didn't charge, it was free. It meant the world, and it meant that they knew they were loved. Then at Christmas, we made boxes for various people with chocolates in them, with a lovely card, with lots of other things. I can't remember now, lots of treats. And we delivered them. We drove around the area and we delivered them to people's homes. And they were amazed. You know, it was like, that is so kind. And we're about to do that to every person in the church. We're preparing them now. And in the next 2 weeks of lockdown, we're going to deliver to over 1,200 people little gift boxes that say, we love you, we're thinking of you, you're not on your own. Then we've been doing various things on Zoom. Now, if you're anything like us, we are so zoomed out, it's unbelievable. It's like, if we have to go on Zoom one more time, we're going to kill ourselves, you know, but yet we found things. So we do things on Zoom for the children, and it's really great for whole families, and they join in and they love it, and it's well prepared. We're doing physical exercise with someone in our church is a personal trainer. And so we're all going to be in our homes. We're going to put our cameras on and we're all going to do it together. And it's going to be exercise that can just be done in your house without equipment. Then we've been making, folk have wanted to, with someone who's good at cooking, making chutney and cakes and various other foods together on Zoom. Then we've had lots of things like that, so many different things. Andy and I, for most of the lockdown, we did a thought for the day every day. The way we do our live stream is very family. So it's not a performance. We just try and do it in a very, we try to keep connected. And then we as leaders, we say to our church every week, we say, we love you, we're praying for you. Please be in touch if there's anything you need or if you just want to talk. And we mean it. And do you know, we've had folk join our church rather than leave. You know, people who said they stumbled upon us and they were blown away by the friendship. You know, people who that we've never met yet, but who've been on Alpha courses with us and become Christians. And they're just some of the ways in which we've tried to be community, as well as our Connect groups continue to meet on Zoom. But what we've told our Connect leaders is, hey guys, don't try and have a 2-hour meeting on Zoom. You'll kill everyone. Just have a 30 to 45 minutes. You know, there's some of our guys that after the live stream service on Sunday morning, they have virtual coffee where they go onto Zoom and everyone drinks coffee and just chats like they would after the service. Another thing that we're doing, and we're going to do it after I've spoken to you tonight, we're meeting on Zoom with people that are doing difficult things at the moment. So last week on the Wednesday, we had 70 people who work in our health service. So doctors, nurses, medical technicians, people who work in hospitals behind the scenes, doctors' surgeries, everything. And we met with them as pastors, and we split into little groups for them to say what they're going through, and for us to listen, and then to feed back to the whole group. And it meant the world to them. You know, they were telling us, some of the doctors, it's unbearable. I'm watching people dying all the time. We're exhausted. We feel, and they knew that we listened to them and we loved them. Then on Sunday afternoon, we did that with all our teachers. And tonight, we're going to do that with all those in our church who are self-employed or run businesses, where many of them are struggling and could go bankrupt. And we're going to do it next week for all the parents who have got all their kids at home because the schools aren't open, so they can share, and so on and so on. And it's like providing opportunities for people to engage with each other where they are, and to talk about the pain that they're feeling, but also to know that we've heard them, we understand, we love them, and we're praying for them. So we're trying to do lots of different things, and not everyone will appreciate everything, but there might be some that might just come on the physical fitness thing and just do it in their house, and it'd be fun and a sense of, hey, I'm not on my own, we're doing it together. Then others might do a Bible study. It varies. So it's not the same as being together, but they know that we're doing our best to keep that sense of family. They know that. And they seem, if I'm honest, to appreciate it. And that's because of the team we have here, they're amazing. It's not me, it's them.
Has it been a process though for you guys? Because I think when COVID first came, I think we're so used to doing arrangements or programs or creating resources and used to serving in that way, if that makes sense. And suddenly all that stuff was taken away from us, and we're kind of trying to find our way in that, because you know, God has still got his agenda. But I guess the first phase, at least for us, this is my perspective at least, the first phase, it kind of felt that we were just trying to digitalize everything that we otherwise would do before the crisis, if that makes sense. And it just kind of didn't fit because things weren't the same, if that makes sense. And we kind of, we had to try to find different ways to love people or serve people. Has that been a process for you guys as well? And or did you feel this? Did you know pretty much upfront how you could serve?
Yeah, I think it was, if I'm honest, it was a mixture. There were certain things, because we had practiced certain things for a while, we continued, and there were other things we learned, you know what, that doesn't work the same way. How do we show, the question we kept asking ourselves is, how do we let them know that we love them and that they're not on their own? So we've done lots. I'll tell you one thing, which it came by accident for me, is we started cooking meals for people in the church and delivering them to their front doors. And I've done that quite a bit. And I love cooking and Greek food. And I started cooking something called macaroni di forno, which is like lasagna, but only much, much better. And I would deliver it to people in my church, or kleftiko, which is leg of lamb cooked slowly in its own juices with oregano. And I would cook that and I would give it to people. And I loved it. And then, honestly, Thomas, I've been living in this house for 20 years. and I haven't known my neighbours very well. And then one day, it was in the summer, I think it was July, I suddenly thought, why don't I cook some food for my next door neighbours? And then I thought, don't be silly, they'll be embarrassed. They won't know what to do. And I thought, no, I'll be embarrassed. That's the truth. So I decided to cook a leg of lamb. And then I was nervous. I took it to my neighbours, I knocked on their door, and I thought, they'll think I'm crazy. And I said, hello, here's a leg of lamb. And then I went and I said, here's a macaroni di forno, like lasagna. Here's a dish. And then I went to other neighbours, and to my amazement, all of my neighbours have loved it and appreciated it. And I've gone all the way up and down the road. And do you know what? They now, my neighbours on this side, where I'm facing, a few weeks ago, they texted me and asked me if I would pray for them because the husband was ill. And could I say a prayer, is how they put it. And a neighbour 3 doors down, the wife they saw that I didn't have a Christmas wreath at my front door, you know, the Christmas decoration we have in England. And so she made me one. In fact, I've got it here. I'll just quickly show you. I don't know if you could see it. She made me this and brought it round. And we tied it to my front door. And she said, it's a way of saying thank you for your kindness for cooking meals for us. And they're all been asking, how are you doing? Are you okay? Is there anything we can do for you? And now I've got a great relationship with my whole road. And we've agreed that when COVID is over, we're going to have a big party outside my house. There's a little green outside my house. And I'm going to do a big barbecue. And I'm going to cook lots of food. And everyone's going to come out and we're going to have a party. And there's a street. And it's like, why didn't I do this 20 years ago? It's so simple. But it started with doing it for my church, for people in my church. And then I thought, why am I not doing it for my neighbours? And it has been an absolute joy and pleasure to me, and a revelation that people are open to kindness. Now, I don't know if that works in Norway because you all live a bit further apart because you've got more space, but we live on top of each other. We have small houses. So that's basically some of the things. And so we've discovered that actually finding out who have got, you know, like we've got some parents. Oh, another one. I'm in a bubble because I live on my own with Andy and Beth Croft and their kids. And Andy leads the church with me. And they've got 4 boys, 5 years and under. And so I'm on my own here, and they have got to look at their book. The schools are closed in England now. And so they've got to look after 4 lively boys, 5 years and under. And Andy's got to do a bit of a job as well. And they're exhausted. So for the last weeks, every afternoon, they bought one of them has come round with 2 of the boys. And I will look after and play with 2 of the kids for about 2 hours. And then they go back. And the boys seem to love it. I absolutely love it. I have made, in fact, I'll show you this. Judah, who's 4, he made this Lego model with me. We did it together. And it's a Harry Potter house. And so that's here. And he loves it. And we sit here making it. And it helps Andy and Beth. And it's lovely for me. And so there's all sorts of practical ways in which you can be family, even if it is, Thomas, just a simple text. You know, it doesn't have to be big. Been thinking of you. How are you doing? Let me know if there's anything I can pray for. And when people get a simple text like that, they know they belong. They're not going to leave us because they know that we're family for them. And that's not true, sadly, of every church. Some churches in our country, there are churches that are really struggling and they're losing people. I'm being honest with you. But our giving, we were sure that our giving would go down dramatically because they weren't there. It's actually gone up, which is crazy. I don't know. It's gone up. It's like, where is the money coming from? Lots of them have lost their jobs. How is this happening? But it says something. And I'm not saying it to boast. I'm saying it to give examples of, and it's working it out in your context. You know, how can we let people know that we love them in our church, in our context? And sometimes it means spending money, like those, you know, those meals. You know, we wanted to do them well. And one of the things they appreciated is, this is really, really nice food. This is better than a takeaway. This is amazingly tasty. And so we put our hearts and souls into it. Hey, and also you can see it on YouTube. I did a video back in July on how to cook Greek food.
On the YouTube channel?
Yeah, it's on our Soul Survivor Watford YouTube channel. And it's been watched by many. And also, we did, Andy and I, with our personal trainer, we did fitness videos that people could watch. We're going to do it as Zoom, but the fitness videos, I thought I was doing all right. But then I looked back at them, and it's like embarrassing because I didn't do very well. But there we are. So it's lots of different ways.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for sharing your process. So I'm not sure you've heard this on your hand, but for myself, and I guess most of my friends, were kind of just looking forward to everything reopening. We're missing stuff, obviously, but also I've heard quite a bit of church members talking about that the shutdowns have been nice because you've kind of put down a lot of church activities, and it kind of feels like they're finally breathing a bit. And that just kind of breaks my heart if that's where some of the people are at, if you know what I mean. Have you met that in some way or another, or is basically most of the people just eagerly waiting the reopening of the society? Or have you heard that as well?
I think there was a small element of that right at the very beginning, but not now. I think everyone's desperate, and our church, we're desperate to get back together. And we're gonna, and when all the restrictions are lifted, we're gonna have a giant party. Where that can happen is if people have just been so busy doing jobs. I think the secret is they will come back to relationships. A guy called John Wimber once said, people go to church for many reasons. They stay for only one: relationships. And as with many Wimberisms, it's overstated, but it's got an element of truth in it. It's exaggerated, but there's truth. And I think for us, maybe one or two of the people who maybe at the beginning thought, oh, you know what, it's really nice not to try and get the kids all ready and screaming into the car to drive to church for 9 a.m. And, oh, we can just turn on the TV and we're watching everyone. Now they're desperate to get back. And I think it's going through that. Yeah, that's the best answer I can give. Maybe it's not a good one, but I think it's working on the family stuff, because when you love and you know you're loved, you want to be with the people that you love. When you're going to an institution, you're thinking, gosh, it's nice not to have to go. But like, they're not going to come to do things. They're going to come to be part of a family. And the family misses each other. I mean, our question is more, it's now looking like there won't be suddenly a day when it's all okay now, we can all go back together. And we think, we don't know, but some of my team think that some of our folk will struggle to come straight away because they'll be scared of being in a room with lots of other people. And so we're wondering, rather than being crowded, you know, I think some people in England are going to be a little averse to being in a big crowd because of what they might catch. It'll take them a while to get over this, and especially if there's variants of coronavirus that, you know, people are talking about. So we're looking at, do we do more services that are more socially distanced? So we're trying to look at that, and how do we help? Because some of our folk have got very worried, and some of our older people worried about their health. Also, the other one is, I don't know if this is the case for you, but lots of people in our country, and it's reflected also in our church amongst some, are struggling with mental health issues as a result of this, and even children. And so we've tried to do lots of stuff about that. When we know folk are struggling with mental health, they tell us. And so we'll pray with them on Zoom. We'll phone them regularly. We'll drop something off at their front door to say we love them. We'll put on. There's a friend of ours who's a great psychologist counselor, and we got her to answer questions for an hour on how to cope with lockdown and the mental health issues, and for parents, for their children. So we're trying to keep listening to where are the felt needs, and how can we help? And so I hope that when they come back, they'll know that our first aim is to look after them and care for them. And the only other thing I would say is, we've realized that we must also talk about our vision for the future, because without vision, the people perish. And I think we went through a short time where we kept talking about, oh, how difficult it is, how are you coping? And then I suddenly thought, wait a minute, there's something missing. We need to have hope, and we need to look at the future. And of course, Jesus gives us hope, but we also give hope when we say, hey, this is, when we get back, this is what we want to do. And we got a vision for church planting and for all sorts of things, and reaching our community. And we started to share it, and everyone was, yes, we're going to do this together. We can't wait. So I think it's listening to the Lord, but listening to the people as well, and responding as well as we can to where they're at, so that they know that they are understood, they are heard, they are loved, but also they are encouraged to keep going. Sorry, that was a very long answer. I'm sorry.
That's awesome. So putting COVID on the side for a bit, and talking about I guess a different issue we've seen the last year or year and a half. At least I've been very struck by it, is that we've seen a few influential Christian leaders. I don't know how to put it. Well, every situation is different, I guess, but some of them have had fallouts, or some of them have been have left the churches themselves, and so on. And it kind of, speaking of family, I've thought a lot this last year about how does family look when we kind of we fall, or we hit confrontations, or we, like, really influential people in church sin, and so on. How do we sort that as a family, if that makes sense? I guess every situation is different, obviously, but there have been a couple of situations, and I've kind of thought, where's the family in that, if that makes sense? But obviously there's also lines between it's difficult to be on staff at church if you don't have if your church doesn't have confidence in you and so on. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of aspects to this, but I guess my question is in relation to how does family look when we kind of fall, or we meet disagreement, or we just struggle finding our way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially considering influential leaders that have influence all over the world.
Yeah. Well, there's so many facets to that answer I could give. I think, first of all, because there is a balance and you have to have discernment. First of all, if you keep thinking we're a family, in a family where we love each other, where we have disagreements, we work through those disagreements. Our relationship, is more important than being right. And truth matters. Truth matters. But lots of the disagreements aren't about truth. They're not really about doctrine. They're about how do we do this? And in a family, what you do is you work it out because you're committed to each other. Also, we're all broken, every single one of us. And we all have secrets, and we all have areas of weakness, and we all have areas of sin. And what we have a saying in our church, which I'm sure I've told you, we always say we want to be a church where it's okay not to be okay. And that doesn't mean we're not saying, hey, it's okay to be bad and to sin and to get things wrong, and you stay there. We're all depressed and we'll stay there. No. Jesus wants to heal us. Jesus wants to forgive us. Jesus wants to restore us and set us free. But the trouble with many churches, Thomas, is it's not okay. It's not okay to not be okay. And what that means is leaders, if they start being honest about their struggles, they are labeled and they are removed quietly. And what that says to everyone in the church is, I mustn't say about my struggles because I won't be loved and accepted. And the truth is, we're all broken. And so how we deal with brokenness is very important. And sin that hurts other people, and if it's deliberate, ongoing deception, that's one thing. But for most people, they mess up. And so we need to provide a pathway to restoration. And the first restoration is restoration of relationships. So we love them. I'll be honest, I've had lots of young men come to me and tell me, I messed up with pornography. I feel so ashamed. I'm so embarrassed. And people who are leaders now, and my words to them are, I love you very much. I'm proud of you that you told me. Let's talk about how you won't do it again. Let's talk about what the cause was. Let's take it to Jesus. Let's get forgiveness. And then let's talk about a plan for how we can help so that it doesn't be a pattern. And in a lot of places, they won't even say. And so it becomes a secret. And what happens is when leaders don't have permission to say, you see, some of the leaders, you haven't named the names, but I'm sure the same people as you, they didn't have accountability. And that accountability is not, right, you have to be accountable to me, because if it's imposed, everyone can get away with it. Everyone, it has to be a choice. And some of those leaders, they were regarded by their people as above them, as holy, as spiritual, as more. And so there couldn't be a challenge. What I love in my church is if I am rude or impatient or eat too much or whatever it is, I have people who love me enough to challenge me. I have people who love me enough to say, hey, Mike, do you know in that meeting you came across a bit impatient, and do you realize you cut that person off? And you might not have noticed it, but I could see they were hurt because they value what you think. Okay, thanks for telling me. And I go to that person and I'll apologize and I'll ask them to forgive me. But I wouldn't even have noticed it if they hadn't have said. But what it means is those people will support me always. They'll challenge me to my face, and they will defend me behind my back. And when you have that amongst you in that culture, things get nipped in the bud early. You know, issues start getting dealt with before they become massive and before they become hidden, you know. But we need to have a culture, it's part of being family, where, hey, we're a church of grace. Now, there are some occasions, if somebody has been deceiving for a long time, deliberately, and leading two lives, now that person did it out of brokenness, but what it can mean, as they are restored, some folk, they've lost the trust. But that doesn't mean you don't restore them to fellowship. That means you restore them to the family, and it may be in 20 years' time, you know, they can begin to serve in the way they did before again. They might not. But again, we look in the church, our culture values status. Our culture values status above relationship. And often in churches, we value status above relationship. And that's wrong. So if you value status above relationship, you only think you're restored if you're back to the position you were before. But if it's relationship that's valued, guess what? When you're restored into the family, it's wonderful. And it's like, gosh, I'm here. This is what matters. And just one little example, which I love, which I heard a while ago, was someone in leadership who messed up really badly and who sinned and who broke trust. And it was discovered, and they were removed from leadership, which was right. But the leaders and everyone went through a whole thing with them and assured them, we love you. We don't think any differently of you. They said, don't stop coming to church. We love you. We're going to pray with you. And then when that person, after, I think it was a year and a half, 2 years of going through why they did it, why they hid it, counseling of what was the cause, a sense that they had repented. Do you know what that church did? I love it. There was a Saturday where the whole church gathered together and they had a restoration party. They had a restoration party, and they got lots of food out, and they just cheered this person as they were welcomed back in every way. And it was like a big celebration. That person felt like, you know, man, they saw me at my worst, and look, they're holding a party for me. Do you know, there's a church I visited like that in Australia years ago. And they were a church that reached out to prostitutes, to drug addicts, to pimps, and to those in the gay community. And they reached out to them, and they loved them. And they preached the gospel. They preached what the Bible teaches about ethics and morality, but they absolutely sacrificially loved them. I visited that church. I was amazed. You know, I was sitting there with ex-prostitutes and with some that were still prostitutes, but were developing a sense of family in the church that would sustain them when they finally made the decision to stop being a prostitute. Because many prostitutes, they don't just do it for money. For some, it's the only community they have, which is unbelievable. So how about we start being the alternative community? But the thing I love the best about the church, do you know what the name of the church was? I love the name. They called their church Matthew's Party. Matthew's Party. If I had another life, I'm too old now, I'd want to plant a church and call it Matthew's Party. Because Matthew, the tax collector, Matthew, the sinner, when he met Jesus, he threw a party for Jesus and invited all his sinner friends, and they were at home. That's what we should be aiming for. Now, last thing I'll say on that is there are times, I think sometimes when when someone's messed up, we had an incident, someone who I love was a leader in somewhere else, a prominent leader in England, who led a whole movement of churches. He had an affair, and I was close to him and his wife. I still am, and in fact, his son lived with me for a while, as he was one of our worship leaders. And when he messed up, he was removed from everything, but everyone stopped. No one would touch him, and I started inviting him to come and have meals with me and his wife, and we had so many meals, and every meal he wept, and he worked on his marriage, and he confessed, and he took responsibility. He tried to explain why, but he didn't excuse his behavior. And then after 2-3 years, I asked him and his wife in a seminar if they would share a little bit together about how they were restored and how they restored their marriage and what they learned through what had happened. It was brilliant. But I had some people come to me really angry, saying, why did you give him a platform after what he did? What he did was, was inexcusable. And I said, do you know what he did was terrible? It was awful. It was absolutely horrible what he did to his family and to his church. But the person who knows it the most is him. He knows it more than anyone else. So, and they said, but it's only been 2.5 years. Why did you get? And they only shared about their story in a seminar that I was leading. And I said, maybe you're right. Maybe 2.5, 3 years, it was too early. How much longer do you think we should kick him? 5 years? I know. Let's kick him for another 10 years. Do you think that will be enough? And it's like, come on, folks, let's show some grace now, because we've been shown grace. And somebody said to me, what if he does it again and he's fooled you? And my honest answer is, if I'm going to make a mistake, I'd rather make a mistake showing grace and being disappointed than showing judgment and losing them completely. You know what? I can face Jesus saying, Lord, maybe I showed too much grace, than facing Jesus and saying, I was never going to give him another chance. Yeah. That's where I stand on it. And I'm a biblical Christian, I believe. Another little saying we have is, in our church, we want to preach and teach the highest moral values that Jesus taught. The highest. But we also want to have the deepest level of compassion that Jesus had on those who couldn't keep the highest moral values that he taught. Jesus taught against adultery, but he had compassion on the woman caught in adultery. He said about the love of money, but he had compassion on Zacchaeus, the tax collector, and so on. So we teach the highest standards that Jesus gave us, but we also have the deepest compassion that Jesus showed us. I think that's the biblical balance.
Awesome, Mike. So I guess one of the other topics we kind of dived into last year was the prophetic, and it's been an interesting year when it comes to the prophetic aspect as well. I don't know. At least here we've seen a few prophets or self-declared prophets prophesy over the American elections and so on, and there's been kind of a lot of heated discussions about wrong prophetic messages and so on. There's a lot of tension, I think, about when we first go there, where we say where we indicate what God is saying or doing. There's a lot of tension, straight up, I think, but still God does speak. And what are your thoughts around the prophetic? I guess even through COVID, where do we place God? Does God still have an agenda? Is God still speaking through COVID? I mean, obviously He is, but what is your own sense of what God is saying this last year?
Well, when it comes to the prophetic, I believe that every prophecy I have is always 100% correct, and everyone else is wrong. And I just got a word now, actually, that people that are watching this should give me all their money. And I'll tell you my bank account details later. Do you think I could get away with that?
Probably not in Norway. Maybe.
No, what a shame. I could in certain places. No, I think it's a misunderstanding of the prophetic. I believe passionately that God speaks today, but I also believe passionately that we don't hear very well. He's always speaking, and when He speaks, it's perfect, but we don't hear very well. And the danger is in charismatic or Pentecostal circles, if we put the prophetic on a par with Scripture, and we say it's like the Old Testament prophets, when they got it wrong, they were stoned to death. And that's because it was regarded as infallible. And if it wasn't infallible, you were a false prophet. New Testament prophecy is let 2 or 3 prophets speak and let everyone else weigh what is said. And the reason that everyone else weighs what is said is they're weighing how much of that was you, Lord, and how much of that was us. New Testament prophecy is not the same as Old Testament. I believe Old Testament prophets equal New Testament apostles, and so, the Bible was written by the apostles and those who were part of their apostolic teams, like Luke was part of Paul's apostolic team, and Mark, they say, was very connected with Peter, and so on. And I think the mistake we make is we put today's gift of prophecy. Someone has a few prophecies, and we give them the status, the office of the prophet, and then we end up having words, "Thus says the Lord," da 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 da. I think it's much more healthy to say, wait, I could have this wrong, but I wonder if the Lord is saying this and this and this. And then you're open to how does this, number one, how does this align with the Bible? If it doesn't align with the Bible, however much you shook when you had the prophecy, however many warm feelings you had when you gave it, it's wrong, because God doesn't contradict Himself, and our standard, our plumb line, is God's word. Secondly, it's weighed by the body. Does this seem right? Thirdly, does it honor Jesus? There's a verse in Revelation that says, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And what that means is, if it's a true prophecy, it testifies to Jesus. It points to Jesus. It's more about, New Testament prophecy is more about revealing Jesus than it is about revealing the future. And when we start prophesying about who's going to be president or prime minister, and it accords with who we would like to be president or prime minister, that's a little warning to begin with. When our prophecies happen to be what we think anyway. Because my experience of God is he usually tells me things that I don't like and I wouldn't have chosen and I don't want, because I'm made in his image. He's not made in my image. And that's kind of a little basic theological truth. You know, we are created in his image, not the other way round. And so we offer prophetic words humbly, and especially if they're directive words, they must be offered very carefully, very gently. And I could well be wrong here. Does this resonate with you? And the other mistake that we've made in the church, and I've seen it, I know what you're talking about. I've seen it, and it's a tragedy in the church in America. In my opinion, what is happening in many of the charismatic Pentecostal circles is they're prophesying the kingdom come in all its fullness now, and they've been prophesying this one person is the means, and the kingdom is now and not yet. And we have a kingdom theology, not a dominion theology. You know, the kingdom will come in its fullness when Jesus returns. Right now we have a foretaste of the future, and the church is the expression of the kingdom, not American government, not British government, not even Norwegian government. You know, it's the church. We're meant to be a prophetic voice to the nation. And so when we start, you know, I believe Christians should get involved in politics, but it's as an expression of the love of God and the outworking of his love, rather than our political viewpoint is the one that is what God wants, and anyone who opposes us is the enemy, and we make people the enemy. So to go back, that's just going into what's happened in America, but to go back to your general point, I think again, the other thing that we do, that was what I was going to say, is in the charismatic and Pentecostal church, in the Catholic Church, and I love the Catholic Church, there's a hierarchy, and they look to priests and saints and the Pope to tell them. So there's a hierarchy. In the evangelical church, and I love the evangelical church, I'm an evangelical, there's a hierarchy, and it's the great evangelists and Bible teachers. And so we go to the great Bible teacher, John Piper, or D.A. Carson, or whoever yours is. And it's like they're the people we look to. In the charismatic and Pentecostal churches, there's a hierarchy. It's the apostles and the prophets and those with strong healing ministries. And my problem with that is it's all three are can be the Christian version of a celebrity culture. We choose certain people and we put them on a pedestal and we worship them and we look to them. And what that does is it disenfranchises the whole of the rest of the church. And I think the Bible teaches every member ministry and the role of leaders, and I believe in leadership. I believe in leadership. Do you know there's a verse in the New Testament that says the church is built on the foundation of the apostles and the prophets? So where should the apostles and the prophets be found? In the basement, at the bottom, holding things up. In lots of churches, the apostles and the prophets are found on the roof at the top. Hey, look at me. You're all holding me up. Our job as leaders is to serve those we lead, if it's Christian leadership. And I struggle with the celebrity leadership thing. And that's the other bit that's caused this damage. Sorry, again, that's a very long answer, but I feel quite passionately about it.
I don't know. Yeah.
Go on.
And I've kind of thought about myself that I think fear is such a big issue, at least in Norway. I think fear is a really big issue. I guess especially concerning the prophetic, because you so don't want to go wrong with the prophetic. You know what I mean? and I think there is we would like to have a prophetic culture, and we would really like to have a spirit-led culture, but how do you even build from scratch when you're so afraid to go wrong in this? Does that make sense? And so how do you build a prophetic culture from scratch?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the fear of getting it wrong has to be addressed. And the way we address it is by saying, I guarantee you, I promise you, you will get it wrong. Get over it. We will get it wrong. We all have, in England, if you're learning to drive, you have L plates on. And what I say is, we're all prophets with L plates. And the only qualification you need to hear the voice of the shepherd is to be a sheep. So this isn't about passing or failing. This is about growing. And the first thing for to develop a culture of the prophetic is learning to listen. And that involves silence and solitude. That involves be still and know that I am God. That involves, he was not in the earthquake, the wind and the fire, but then came the still small voice, the gentle whisper. God, in my experience, shouts to his enemies, but he whispers to his friends. And because it's in relationship. If we understand it's in relationship, and sometimes we mishear. And so that's why we say we all share it humbly. And if it doesn't ring true, we learn from it. If it doesn't make sense, we learn from it. And as I keep saying, nobody dies. Nobody dies. And for our church, we've got a whole load now, because we've said if you get a prophecy right, that your status will not be on that. That doesn't determine your status. Your status depends on the cross of Jesus. And so we're all the same. This is what I mean about, and so we need to give people courage. You know, that we need the gift of courage to not fear failure, to step out. And our friend's church, not far from us, that we're very close to, they decided that they weren't seeing these things in their church through many members, because everyone was thinking that it had to always be right, and they were scared of being wrong. So do you know what they did? They had a year where they said, right, we are going to aim for 1,000 acts of courage. And so what they did is every Sunday, they had people getting up and giving testimonies of something courageous they did. And they had it on their website as well. So one example, a lady got up and she said, I was standing at the bus stop. We have bus stops in England. And there was a lady standing away from me, and she looked sad. And I thought, should I go up to her and pray for her? And then I thought, oh, I don't know. And then I thought, I think it's something to do with maybe one of her children. So she thought, I'll go. So I went up and I said, hello, you look a bit sad. I wonder if it's something to do with one of your children. I'm a Christian, could I pray for you? And the lady said to her, well, that's very lovely of you to ask, thank you, but no, thank you. And the bus came and the lady got on the bus. The lady who gave that word got up on the Sunday, and that was the story. She said it. Everyone in the church stood and clapped and cheered the act of courage. And it was like, well, and they were cheering acts of courage. I went for it and nobody died. She said, no, thank you, but no. That's very kind of you to ask. And it's no different to me plucking up the courage to giving my neighbours that first leg of lamb. Will they reject me? Will they think that I've poisoned it? Will they think he's weird? You know, and all of those questions. So it's creating culture, and it's creating a culture not of fear, but of faith. where people can begin to thrive. And then we take people on a journey that's really practical. This is how you can hear God speak. And then we're really honest. You've seen, often when I have words in a meeting, I say, who is that? Are you here? Who is that? And I say it so that people can see I want to be accountable. And often people put their hands up and say, actually, that was me. Sometimes no one puts their hand up. And I love it when that happens. I promise you, I want that to happen, because then I say, oh, I must have got it wrong. And nobody died. And everyone thinks it's okay to get it wrong. It's okay. If he did it, then maybe it's all right for me. And you see, that's the furnace in which you grow the prophetic. There's so many things. This could be a whole conference, but they're just some thoughts.
Well, Mike, speaking on the prophetic, what do you think about the FA Cup tie on Sunday?
Thus saith the Lord, Manchester United will beat Liverpool. Thus saith the Lord.
That's
Please.
Interesting.
Forgive me. Please.
The good thing is when they watch, they will know, won't they?
Halvor does not know anything about football.
Oh, man.
He is a false prophet.
The good thing is that we'll know when they watch, won't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to pray and fast until then.
Are you optimistic about Man United's season?
They're doing better. I love Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I have to say. I always have done. From when before he scored that winning goal in 1999 in Barcelona, and I want him to succeed. He's a good man and he's building a team. And I think they're going to give him time now. And the team is starting to get better and better. So I'm optimistic. I've got a lot of hope.
Awesome. Well, Mike, we're so thankful that you took some time. We'd love to have you with us, but we'll get there in the future. And thanks so much for spending some time with us.
My privilege. And just to say, I love you guys. I love your church. I love you as people. I love what you're doing. And it's a privilege to serve with you. And I mean that. It really is. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Mike. See you soon.
God bless. Take care.